and welcome to the January 15th, 2018 version of No BS Talking Sports. I'm Steve Kraser, and as usual, I'll tell it like it is in the world of sports. And I have to tell you folks that, wow, all I can say is what a weekend of NFL football we just all encountered. That was phenomenal. I did expect better matchups in this divisional round, better than what we saw in wildcard weekend, but even all four games exceeded my expectations. As far as my predictions go, I didn't do so hot. I was 1 for 4, and I did have a lot of misses as far as predictions, so that's the reason why I'm not setting the odds at some Vegas casino. But we'll go through the games. I'll have some thoughts on each one of those. We'll preview the AFC, NFC championship games coming up, and I'll have some final thoughts on the week. Let's start with a recap of the weekend in New England. And for me, this was the only game I got right, by the way, and it was the most predictable. We saw firsthand the New England Patriots machine, and it's more than just Belichick and Brady. They have guys that fit their system and just play smart football. I've never seen a smarter football team play as consistently as the Patriots have done in this run. 7 straight AFC championship games now, which is incredible. I don't think we'll see any team do that in our lifetime. But you have to take a look at the adjustments that Bill Belichick and the staff made. Tennessee started out the game, couldn't do any better than that. They had the 95-yard drive, a phenomenal catch by Martin on that first score. And you thought, hey, maybe we do have something, and it's going to be a bit of a challenge for the Patriots. But as always, they kicked in the adjustments with the Patriots, and throughout the rest of the game, Tennessee was in constant second and third in long situations, and you're not going to beat the Patriots either on the road or at home in those kind of situations. So they have the formula for success. It's tried and true. We've all seen it. It wasn't really a shock what New England did to Tennessee. We all know Tennessee had that phenomenal victory in Kansas City in the wild card weekend, but it was just too much. No DeMarco Murray at running back, so that took a little bit of a hit for the Titans. I don't think if that would have made any difference either for the outcome of the game, even if they had Murray. New England is just too damn good. They proved it. I think a lot of the talk with the defensive getting a little bit dinged from some others earlier last week about not having enough horses, not as strong as it used to be. I don't believe that. They added Harrison. That was a great pickup from the Steelers. He's improved their pass rush and their overall defense. And experience means a lot, folks. And New England obviously does have it. And as I mentioned, they mix in guys every year. They seem to adjust to the system. It's like clockwork. And they're going to be a tough out in the AFC Championship game next week, and we'll talk about that matchup with Jacksonville in a little bit. I'll stick with the AFC in my recap and look at Pittsburgh. And this one actually did shock me as far as number of points. If you would have told me that there was going to be 87 points scored between these two teams, I would not believe you. Defense predominated both of these teams throughout the year, and especially with Jacksonville. Pittsburgh had some wild games, but you would thought being at home, all the momentum. Jacksonville maybe have come in a little too overconfident. They're kind of the newbies in the playoffs, so a lot of these players have not been in the playoffs, but wow. All I can say is Jacksonville just took it right to them. And you really have to start on that first drive, going for it on 4th and goal. And I think that was a phenomenal decision by Doug Marrone and that staff. You can't just accept 3 points, especially on the road as an underdog. It was 4th and maybe 1, maybe less than 1. And with that running game, you just go for it. And I think that was the start of the momentum that the Jacksonville Jaguars carried throughout that entire game. We'll talk about some of the decisions. Tomlin, I didn't agree with some of these. Pittsburgh always seemed to be able to answer back, but they got kicked in the mouth at 14-0. And you kind of had a feeling that, I know it's the Steelers and I know they're at home, but that would have been too much to overcome. And yet, they did have a shot at the end of the game to win it. I thought that Roethlisberger did not play overall well. I know second half, and they kicked in with the TDs, but he just didn't seem himself, and you cannot turn the ball over against Jacksonville, against any team really, but that trend continued against Jacksonville as far as what he did in the first game against them in Week 5, and that was really a shock that I saw that on Sunday as well. Tomlin going for a couple of decisions that you got to look at, and the biggest one is obviously going for the onside kick with 2:18 left, timeouts left. I know the defense was getting shredded the whole game, but the way the scoring is, and you could have been just down by 7 if you would have stopped them. You might have got the ball back with only 20 seconds off the clock or so. But guys, you got to trust the defense there, and I just thought that really put them, the final nail was right there. You can't give up those obviously 3 points. I know you still had to stop them for a few yards, but they go down by 10 and that's the game. And even with Pittsburgh coming back in that last second, you couldn't do anything about that. So Tomlin, you got to question him in a big spot. I mean, this is not the first time that something questionable decisions have come up with him, but I thought that was just a slam dunk decision. It surprised the announcers. I think it surprised most of us that you have to basically kick off there and trust your defense, irregardless of what happened at the beginning of the game and throughout. You got to live in that moment and trust your defense. And the risk and reward, I mean, the best possible outcome is you would have just been down by 7. You had a chance to tie. And yes, the worst possible outcome is you do the onside kick, but you got to trust your defense. You got to trust it there, guys. So I think Pittsburgh's going to have a lot of decisions in the offseason. Roethlisberger today already said he wants to play at least 3 more years, so he quickly quelched that retirement talk. There's some talk around Todd Haley, the offensive coordinator. Are they going to move on from him? It seems to be a trend in the NFL these days. The last 2 weeks or so is the coordinators getting blamed for some things, but there's going to be some questions there. The Le'Veon Bell contract, are they going to franchise him? Do you want to get in a situation where you keep on franchising and taking more of your cap up? I do think they'll find a way, even if they do have to franchise Bell, is to keep that band together. But they got to fix that defense, folks. I mean, that back end of the defense, they have to look at the defensive secondary in the offseason. We know the Shazier situation. We don't know about him. They may have to take a look at linebacker and really the defensive line. I think they really do need to take a look at all 3 aspects of their defensive team and make some improvements in free agency and the draft. So that's going to be an interesting offseason. Want to switch to one of the Saturday games, which was Atlanta and Philadelphia. And, I did expect a defensive kind of game here. Obviously, with Carson Wentz out, Philadelphia maybe has had to rely on their defense a little bit more. But Atlanta, what they had all the momentum, winning LA the earlier week, and the early turnovers basically gave Atlanta the points with Philadelphia. They had the 10 points over turnovers, all the momentum in the world. Philadelphia, kind of played it conservative with Foles. That kind of basically hurt in the playoffs until it kicked in. And it was just more of a we talked about adjustments earlier with Belichick and the Patriots. And you got to give Philadelphia credit to Jim Schwartz and that defensive staff, holding that Atlanta offense to 10 overall points after they were down 10-0 and didn't give up any more. It was just a tough game that you expected with Philadelphia. Foles came up in big spots when you needed it, kind of like Case Keenum that I'll talk about. Just did not make a lot of mistakes. And in the end, just a very good defense stopped a very good offense. We saw Julio Jones and Sanu on the Atlanta side get some spots get going, but not consistently throughout the game. The running games for both sides really didn't get it going, and it was about adjustments, being on the road. Foles, we all know, guys, what he came into the game with a lot of question marks. He's not going to perform as he did a few years ago. He's not Carson Wentz. Well, a lot of people aren't Carson Wentz, but I got to give him credit. They played a clean game. Yes, it was at home, and they had all the crowd momentum, But again, it was a matter of adjustments. Going against a Pro Bowl quarterback, Matt Ryan, who's had playoff experience and done well. So that was a big challenge, and they're going to be a force here. And we'll talk about the NFC matchup with Minnesota in a little bit. And I'll go next to Minnesota and New Orleans. So, wow, what an unbelievable game. I mean, you couldn't script this any better with the multiple lead changes, the phenomenal last play that we'll talk about in a second. But what a phenomenal game. More than my expectations. We all kind of had them pegged as the top two teams in the NFC, and they really didn't disappoint. They start out with the two early flags on the Saints DB Crawley, and that led the way to the first Minnesota touchdown. I thought that second PI call on Crawley was questionable. I thought Diggs tripped on his own. That could have easily been offensive PI there, right there. But great defense overcame great offense once again. And I know New Orleans kicked it in. Drew Brees, Hall of Fame quarterback. Keenum just played an unbelievable game. He got his time. He got his receivers open. And it just was the back and forth game that once they got into those last 5 minutes and those lead changes, you kind of knew whoever was going to have the ball with the last few seconds was going to win it. Now, not to win it on that 61 phenomenal pass TD play. I know Minnesota played it wise. People say, why didn't New Orleans run it down with that field goal? Well, they couldn't. I double checked and I looked back, and Minnesota used the last two timeouts to save time. They played the clock well with 20 odd seconds left. And I know the DB Thomas is really taking a hit here, but you can't really blame him. You got to put the onus on the whole New Orleans defense. Yes, that he maybe should have got in front of the DB and not worry about PI, but you or I have never been in that situation, guys. So you can't really ding him. The guy's 20 years old. He's taken a lot of hits on social media today, and I feel bad for him because to be in that spot, you have so many things going through your mind, and it's a bang-bang play, and if that play happens 100 times and Keenum throws that, Minnesota may score on another one of those times. 98 out of 100 times, that ball gets deflected, it's incomplete, he steps out of bounds. But you gotta just look at that play, and what an unbelievable play. By keeping in bounds, staying on his feet, all the things there. You have to believe in Minnesota having all the momentum in the world. I know they have to go to Philadelphia, but the Super Bowl is 2 weeks away within their home stadium, so they're going to have their eyes on that. But what a just unbelievable game, and it really sets up the matchups for AFC NFC championship game. And what phenomenal! And I really do think, guys, that we're down to the 4 best teams overall in the NFL this season. And I will start with that AFC matchup, and you have now Jacksonville going to New England, and I give Jacksonville the credit. They have all the momentum. They have the confidence. They just beat a Pittsburgh team. A lot of people not giving them any credit. A lot of people giving New England the game already and the Super Bowl even, but they just have to play it out. So barring any bad weather, I don't know what the extended forecast is for New England, but it's going to be a task, but it's not impossible. New England, as I mentioned earlier, they're healthy. No one is better at scouting opponents than Bill Belichick and that staff. But anytime you have a Leonard Fournette and a formidable running game, which Tennessee did not, New England has not gone against a formidable game in a while. Even Bell might have been banged up a little bit when they played Pittsburgh a few weeks ago. So ball control, no turnovers, have some luck with New England maybe turning the ball over, and you never know what can happen here. I know it's a long shot, but I do like Jacksonville as a better chance to win than most people will give them. So we'll see what happens there. And that's going to be a very good matchup. On the NFC side, the question is, you have Case Keenum versus Nick Foles and Philadelphia and that home crowd, as I talked about earlier. I really expect maybe it's a similar type of game than we saw with the Falcons and Philadelphia, maybe a lower scoring game than people think. Keenum and Foles seem to be great game managers, not make mistakes. Who has the better defense? Well, you can make arguments on both sides. Minnesota, obviously, with their top-rated defense. They have no holes, I believe, in all facets of that defense. But Philadelphia proved that they can stop a formidable offense as they did with Atlanta. So you really never know. Again, barring bad weather, some crazy other things happening, I think it's just going to be a well-played game, probably a low-scoring game. I'm looking, probably at the home teams winning. I'm just going to go there with Minnesota. I'm sorry, with Philadelphia and New England. I think Philadelphia is going to find a way to pull it out, as well as New England, and that's my prediction for the Super Bowl. And we'll see what happens, guys. So overall, great. I'm so looking forward to the championship games coming up. I don't know if they're going to top the emotion and the excitement and the electricity that we just saw in the divisional round, but we'll see what happens. I'll come back next week with recap of both games and an early preview of Super Bowl 52. In the meantime, be well this week, guys. Be safe. God bless. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.